Neuroevolution is a social theory from the 1930s that incorporates archaeology, paleontology, and historiology. It is objective, so it doesn't use any moral or cultural value systems. It doesn't believe in social progress or determinism, and instead it focuses on the probability. They ask what if and alternative questions, looking for different answers to travel a different path. Pretty much what you would see in the Scott approach that we examined in the first week of our textbook. They focus on empirical evidence. That's the basics of their tenets and what it is. An example of the technology that alters or may alter human evolution would be genetics. That's the easiest one I can come up with. It runs so parallel to the technology that I'm exploring. I really had a lot of fun with this. If you can alter or change genetics, you could do things from change eye color to eliminate disease, increase your longevity, how long you live, skills such as math, writing, athletics, basically getting rid of your limitations. That would be kind of cool. I have to admit, that would be kind of cool. What would be the drawbacks? Well, there's a lot of them. And, we're going to balance this out. You wouldn't be you any longer. It's not your ability or your genetics. It is the neo-revolutionary genetics. You're no longer unique. And what has shaped and directed your life has been removed. Sometimes adversity is a powerful sculpting tool that makes us unique. If you remove it, then your purpose and what makes you you are gone. And that's going to be hard. That's going to be really tough. If we start transforming ourselves into something superior, what rights will these enhanced creatures claim, and what rights will they possess when compared to those left behind? That's Fukuyama from the textbook. I like him a lot. I really like him a lot. One of the things that I found ironic is the speaker Harvey Feinberg from this week's video selections is that he makes two arguments. One is the strongest of the fittest, and the other one is that if you could get rid of disabilities, wouldn't you? Okay, I have a disability. I have a mother with a disability. I have 4 kids. 3 of them have HSP. 1 of them has autism, and the other 2 are stepchildren, so they wouldn't have my genetics. So, of course, as a mother, you do not want your children to lose their physical abilities. And you actually have a grieving process that when you learn their diagnosis, you're just like, for that loss, that potential, okay? And if you could be given that back, oh gosh, there's so many elitist doctors I would like to confront with that. But you know what? That's not what it's about. So the second point that he makes is the Darwin concept of survival of the fittest. He does not understand what that means. Let's take something into consideration. Every person born has 5 genetic mutations, of which 2 of those are fatal, right? Hereditary spastic paraparesis has a secondary feature to it that has a heightened immune system, which is really cool because we don't get sick as much and we live forever. Our lifespan is 104, 90, 81, but my father died at 52. My uncle died at 60. My aunt died at 60. All able-bodied, all healthy, but they all died before 60. And 2 of my other uncle also died. The only ones that survived are the ones that are handicapped. My mother, her brother, and my Aunt Nancy, but she doesn't have it. And then, my father, my stepfather, and she's now married a 3rd time. So my mother's buried 2 husbands. Who's the fittest? How do you determine that? And if you get rid of that disease and you no longer have that immunity, is that a good thing to get rid of? How do you know what you're getting rid of and what you're keeping? Is it worth the trade? So that's something to think about. Think of it also in another way. Think of it as a seashell. When they first start out, they're all smooth. There's not a ripple on them, right? However, the abrasive sand and pushing and driving force of the waves create friction against that shell. Over time, it creates ripples along the seashell, moving it closer to the shore. Then one day, there's these footprints in the sand that have come to take the shell home as treasure. The entire point of the seashell's whole life has been to reach this point, right? Just as the shell, people do not move without the waves of adversity and the friction of sand. If you remove them, what will provoke change? What will provoke purpose? What will make them unique? These are questions that will have to be answered as this technology advances. Neo-evolution goes against moral principle. It wants to be God. It wants to get rid of untidy rules of values and morals. And secondly, it's undeniably possibility of potential that will be given to a specific group of haves and increasing a greater group of has-nots. It will all come down to accessibility and cost. Another issue. I feel that Professor Al Rodham, he's a neuroscientist that went to Harvard and Yale. He hits it right on the head. He states that humans are genetically and neurochemically hardwired to feel good and are driven by a number of factors called neural P5. These consist of power, profit, pleasure, pride, and permanency. If these sound familiar, it's because they're at the very heart of the 7 deadly sins. He promotes these as a reason to pursue this technology. Do I agree with that? Absolutely not. Not only does it eliminate morals, it encourages amoral behavior, at least in his laboratory. But we don't start and stop in one spot. So this brings us to the next question. Should we continue to pursue this form of technology? You don't have a choice. They're going to do it. It is what it is. And it's going to be fun and it's going to be interesting. So you don't have to worry about it. There are a few things worth noting. From my perspective, okay, I'm a Christian. And I'm not going to change. And I'm not going to be the same as everyone. I believe what I believe. And at the same time, I don't require others to believe what I do. They're not going to. From a Christian perspective, I see this as man wanting to be God. I do. That man will only learn one thing from this whole thing. How incredible God's design is. And just as you would not teach a first grader how to do algebra, you don't give a scientist genetic science. They're not ready to know or apply. So if God didn't want them to have it, he wouldn't give it to them. They're ready. It's okay. It's not something we have to worry about. And there's a reason God's revealing it to them, this information at this time. Still, he gives us a glimpse to show us during these times of spiritual conflict and dryness how he's able to create such great things. No one questions a painting by Da Vinci. They do not assume there was no master. They don't think that the painting painted itself, that it put the paint on the canvas. Yet they question God's work for no reason other than he gave them free will to do it. That's so cool. One of the most beautiful love stories you will ever read between a father and a child is the book of Job. It shows that we're not meant to question or worry about the design. It explains why we don't need to know everything, and that we're not there when the world was created. It's okay. He knows more than we do, and he's in control, and that's okay. We're first graders asking to understand algebra. Sometimes I wonder if he looks at us as I do my daughter who's 4 and challenging my authority. Then I laugh and I say an amen, and Holy Spirit approves. So proof God has a sense of humor anyway. I agree with Fukuyama. I really like Fukuyama from the textbook. Yeah. He says this: while dangers to human dignity and destiny are real, I'm not suggesting that technological innovations and potential for enhancement should be halted or stifled. I agree with that. But here's where the answer comes. I am instead calling for urgent global action at the UN level to define international moral and bioethical guidelines on what potential enhancements are acceptable to our global society and on what terms. A voice of reason. So he can take Mr. Al Rodham to school and let him know how it's going to be. Fukuyama says, if we start transforming ourselves into something superior, what rights will these enhanced creatures claim? And what rights will they possess when compared to those left behind? I don't want to be left behind, but I want to be careful how we embrace the technology, and I think Fukuyama understands that. And I think that's really cool, and that's proof that God knows what he's doing. It's neat to see his hand. It's so neat to see his hand. Anyway, thank you. This was a fun assignment.